Hi, how are you? Hey, Christian. Are you gonna get a Christmas vacation?
Actually, it wouldn't even sound like it.
When are you going home?
I was sending, Jesse was going to Illinois Christmas night.
What?
Yeah,
Are you going out there?
I wasn't planning on it, but now it looks like, gee, he's going home until the 5th of January, probably.
Wow.
Yeah, all the stuff got moved up to this week, so it was actually a pretty good week at work.
Good.
Good.
You're still going.
So there's 3 of us. Hey, how's it going on?
You're still going.
So there's 4, but.
Well, I just like to see where people normally sit before I claim a chair. Yeah, we two were missing last week, so, and Rick likes to
Rick's
sit
gonna
there,
sit up here.
or there.
Yeah, I'm sitting here this time.
What's that, man?
It's Kathy.
It's Kathy, she'll sit right here. And so we're down one. Yeah.
Hi, Rick. How are you? Nice to meet you. Happy holidays.
Thank you, you too.
I'm good.
Good.
Yeah, how are you?
I'm good.
I work with Lloyd.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Oh, great. That's awesome. I love him. He's great.
Yeah, we work with.
Nice. What do you do?
Work with carpenters.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
He had mentioned to me, yours. I hope we got. He was here, so.
Yeah, yeah, I know they're
Hey,
trying
Bruce.
to get through a building permit.
Right.
and stuff.
Yeah.
And,
Over to the Main Street now. How do you like it in there?
I'll be like,
Yeah, it's
what is this?
kind of
I'm
feels
like,
like-
I don't know.
actually, it's different part town, but
I'm trying
Is
to
it
get out.
quiet?
I'm
It's
sorry.
we have a husky and, we have a privacy fence there, so he's not gonna jump.
Yeah.
We're always concerned
I
about,
grew up in St.
and seeing a deer and.
Oh, yeah,
So,
that's right.
Is that, so did you follow?
I'm sure it's probably
No,
quiet.
it's just
kind of coincidence.
It's quiet, everything. Well, it'll
Especially
really,
with something you
we'll
guys
really
want.
feel it some.
Yeah. That's great.
New owners are great though,
Okay.
socialize with them,
Oh, nice.
good things.
Well, it's not gonna be the same without the mannequin up there.
He's on Main Street.
I see him every time I drive by.
Yeah,
That's your
That's our man. Well, my wife is the one who like puts her feelers out there.
The turkey version of
I-
mannequin.
My
really
girlfriend and her,
scary. So.
and
The
another
turkey
friend were
version of
making dinner
mannequin
together,
was wearing the turkey outfit.
Yeah.
Socks.
No,
I was,
Yes.
I was going to the timing, giant 6-foot bunny.
Yeah.
It's almost
Yeah,
over.
I can see that.
We're
For
progressing.
some reason, the
Yeah.
Christmas version of
No,
him is okay, even though it's the most human-like, because he just looks like Christmas vacation, yeah.
I know, we could find a mask that looked like Cousin Eddie would make better, 'cause it looks like Cousin Eddie was a male wolf.
You could just print a piece of paper out, I think, stick it on,
Just
you know?
get that straight.
Yeah.
We got the hat and the hose and all that. row and then.
As your new assistant town administrator, I can print that picture out. You just let me know, whatever I can do to help. you know?
It has to, yeah, that'll work. You just have to make sure it'll fit in as a print. We
Mm,
already took the hat when we were out of town. Luckily, we found it.
The wind rebelled against you.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
Didn't like that costume.
Hi,
Yeah.
Rick. How are you? Good. Good.
How did I think about when you were here?
You sit these couple chairs or?
Yeah, if you wanna move in here, I'm moving in at 6:30, that's fine.
Nice chairs.
Who's on here? Mike Davenport.
That's it?
Yeah, sorry. Hey, Tom.
Hey, Tom. Feels like it.
Hey, Tom.
Don't worry. Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of more.
It's,
We have a one.
Well,
Yeah.
You're practiced.
I got the captain's chair.
Plus you can roll all over.
It's Christmas, is, you know, it's a chair.
you're smart.
You can
Those chairs
have-
are a lot more comfortable than
But you can have the
that.
chair behind them if you wanted that.
Yeah, there's one here too.
Although these things are designed to make the meeting go faster.
Rotate the chairs. We have a.
You
The hard
guys use
keys.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Georgetown Planning Commission. It's Wednesday, December 20th, 2023, 6 o'clock. I'm gonna call this meeting to order. Before we start the meeting, I'd like to amend the agenda to include a topic of member attendance at the end of the meeting.
Okay, can we first please get a roll call?
Sure.
Alex Cordillo?
Here.
Jake Cooper?
Here.
Doug Roscoe?
Here.
Thank you.
Now I'd like to include a topic to include the topic of member attendance.
Got it.
Can I get a motion?
Motion to approve the topic of member attendance.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. All right, on the agenda is Serenity for Life at 1414 Argentine Street. Public hearing for a special use permit, request of a change of use to a medical inpatient facility for the treatment of substance addiction exclusively for women. And then we have the Clear Creek Inn recommendation of use as a event facility to the Board of Selectmen. Request to use outdoor space for events as a use by right. And we have vacant seat, letters of intent from Chris Sanford, Christian Dixon, Bruce Shank, Karen Woodford, and Georgia
Cofed.
Kofed. And then the member attendance. Can I get,
You want to open up the public hearing?
open up public hearing
Time is
for,
Public hearing, and we'll get the time,
6:01.
6:03.
and so I'll go ahead and start. So typically when we do a public hearing, just to set the parameters, I'm Rick Cronin, town administrator, I know you see this, but nice to meet, I know most of you, but it's good to see you again. When we do a public hearing, what happens is I will start with a staff report and just kind of do an update, a summary. I'm not gonna go through the staff report, the board members should have already read that. I will say what's going on. Then we have a chance that you can ask questions to me as staff, and then we'll stop that part, and then we'll take it to the applicant. The applicant again then gets to share any more details that were possibly missed or just to clarify, and then the board can then ask questions. And then it opens up to the public, then they'll stop that part, and then they'll open up to the public, and then the public can ask any questions they want. And then the board can, answer questions, or go back to the applicant or to me. However, once that closes, then there's no more opportunity for the public to speak. Okay, so just making sure, even if I see your hand, sorry, we close that portion, so think about questions that you may want to have, or comments or things like that. So, okay, so I'll start with this. We have the applicant here tonight, one of the owners of new owners of Chateau Chamonix, and they have been in the process for a good while now. They bought it, it used to be just a hotel, and they have a desire to turn it into an inpatient medical facility that houses addiction treatment facility for women, less than 28 days. And so our code, as when we went through a review from staff, we realized that that was not a use by right or special use in code. Brought it to the board, and they decided to amend the code to include this as a special use, which then means the board, it would come before the board if they submit an application. Is what happened. They submit an application. This is now a public hearing in order to make a decision for that. This board has a chance to vet, ask questions, put any conditions that they want if so need be. However, this is an opportunity to talk about what this is to the public so they understand why this is important, how this will benefit Georgetown and so forth and things like that. So the board did approve it, approved the amended code in order to include it as a special use. And so the applicant's here because of that. He's now taking advantage of the special use application and brought it here. So town has looked at it. Our board of selectmen has looked at it. We've discussed it many, many times. And I think at this point, staff is comfortable with this project. We think that there's a need for our community, especially when it comes to mental health, and that they've kind of tweaked their business plan in order to include an outpatient component, so that if somebody in the community or in the county would, there'll be a designated time to be able to see a physician as well. So that's a major plus, especially up in the mountains, to be able to have a physician instead of having to drive down to Denver or even Evergreen. So anyways, I'll stop there because that's as far as we've gotten, is that the applicant submitted an application, we've reviewed it, it does fit code, and that's why staff's recommending it, but here's your chance to ask questions too. And then the applicant can go into details about what he's proposing. Any questions for staff?
Yeah, I guess, is there any, feel from staff as to, what their recommendation is moving forward with it pertaining to, I know you said it's up to code. Is everybody on board with that, project possibly being into the town of Georgetown?
Staff at this point sees that this could be a good project / business in our town. So
just to clarify, can I speak, Rick? Or do I have to wait?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry.
Yep. Wait till the board asks
Okay.
questions, and then we'll.
New to this.
You can clarify anything I missed.
Okay.
So at this point, staff, is recommending for this to be approved. So.
Great.
I don't have any questions. I've already gone through the ringer with this, with you, so, I think we can move on to them.
Could you elaborate on the physician aspect of this?
Yeah, so what I was gonna get at is, so this is, just to clarify everything, this is not gonna be a detox center at all. So you have to go to detox before you come here. This is strictly just therapy for mainly trauma and addiction. A lot of times it goes kind of hand in hand. And we're kind of doing, not a copycat, I don't like to use that word, but there's a place up in Carbondale, kind of by Aspen, it's called the Jaywalker. And I had a friend years ago, went there almost 17 years ago. It's an all-male facility. And what drew to me was it's an adventure-based therapy. It's if you like to go snowboarding, golfing, fishing, things that are in nature that we have around here in Georgetown as well. And so when when my friend went there, it was and it's still all males place. And so, I kind of got the idea because of the success rate, just being, having, if you're in Denver, you're going to therapy, you're sitting in office all 6 to 8 hours a day. Here you can take advantage of, the things that surrounding, things like, skiing, and horseback riding, just having nature around you helps, a lot of people with going through, treatment. And so when I saw that, and I saw this opportunity, I said, there's something over there, but there's nothing on this side, and let's do something for women. And so it's strictly an all women's facility. It's only we can only have 10 to 12 people a month. And it's just taking advantage of Georgetown in the area. If you like skiing, come up here, we're gonna go, and I'm not gonna be a doctor or a therapist or anything like that. I'm one of 4 or 5 owners. So we have different partners and limited partners as well. And so it's a project that I looked into a couple of years ago, and so it's taken a couple of years just to acquire the hotel and then get the right people to come in and work for us, and then also it's taken a while for the process of the permit and everything. But we're just trying to help as many people as we can. It's kind of limited, but also what Rick mentioned is the outpatient part. So there's going to be a doctor there, a psychiatrist as well, and then just therapists and also nurses as well. So yeah, strictly just therapy. They're coming in, they're talking, and getting therapy from doctors, and also there'll be 24-hour nurses as well. The facility will also have 24-hour security. So it's going to be not only safe for the community, but safe for our patients as well. So.
So, have you already looked into security services?
We have not. There are a few in Denver that I know there's like a few companies in Denver that have pretty big staff that will come up here. We have to pay a little bit more. And also we can also do in-house security as well.
Are these security services, are they there to keep the patients on property, or? They're
just there for peace of mind for us at night, just to make sure that, there's no activity, nobody coming in or coming out kind of thing. So the people that will be staying there, they can't just come in and out. It's always 24/7 monitoring. And so, yeah, it's gonna be either.
How do you stop them from coming in and going out?
So we have locked doors. We also have, this is a little bit different. So the therapy, the facility that we have is basically, it's a voluntary basis. So before they come here, they have to sign all these disclosures. If they leave, they can leave at any time if they're done, kind of thing. So with insurance, and so there's 2 ways of paying for it. You have, cash for insurance. And when they're in, they're committed, they're in. If this is a facility, if they want to leave anytime, they can leave, but they're basically done with us and everything else. And so this is all a voluntary basis. They're wanting to come here and get therapy. Nobody's forcing them to come here. And so, and also what we're gonna also do, not me, but the staffing, we're gonna also, if we see 10 candidates and if we see that, some of the candidates aren't gonna fit with others, we're not gonna bring them here. If they have violent background, not to say that you have had things in the past, because everyone's had issues in the past, and we all change, and we can change. And so that's not gonna stop you from coming, but we'll kind of read through their profiles, see what their likes and dislikes are, see what, and if it's a fit for both of us. And so we're trying to bring people here to that enjoy what Georgetown and the Strong area has to offer.
Let me add something too. I just thought of it. In my research to get to this point, I reached out to Jay Walker Ranch in Carbondale. I also reached out to the town administrator in Carbondale to find out the relationship and everything. In Carbondale, it's considered a group home. Okay, so that's the category for zone use category.
They're zoned differently, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
We had group homes in Georgetown, however, they're in the commercial area where the facility is.
Right.
Their facility in Carbondale is in a residential that abuts right up to the commercial, so it's a little different, they didn't have any trouble. However, just to, talk about, it's a high center kind of clinic, it's not, drug rehab or anything like that, it's people who are successful in their own lives, and they're going after just a little bit more opportunities to help them in their sobriety kind of thing. So it's not at all detox or drug addictions or anything like that. It's very high. I spoke to the town administrator just to ask them what's the feel in the community, and they're highly supported in the community. They love Jaywalker Ranch. Jaywalker Ranch is, and since they've been there, they've expanded in multiple areas in Carbondale, and so they spoke very highly. So it's not this security kind of complex designed for people. It's nothing like that. It's very high.
It's right in the center of town too.
Is this the same concept you're chasing?
Yes, he's kind of a model of it.
Yeah, it's, we're trying to keep the building, and I know that was a concern of some of the people in town here. Just a little bit of background as far as the Hotel Chamonix in the last few years here, and then also with COVID, it's been just losing a lot of money, and I became friends with the owner, the old owner, Marie, and that's how we kind of got into this place. And so, she didn't want to sell it to another, she was already struggling, so just somebody else, and she thought she did everything she could, and so her concern was somebody else taking over. It's gonna happen again with her hotel, where the micro hotels just was built, and then there's a lot more options than there was before. And we charge about $250 a night versus everyone else charging about $100 a night, so. But if you stay, it's a beautiful place, but, to help her and help the city, we also, we're not gonna try to do anything, we're gonna make it better. The only things that we're doing inside is doing a little carpet and furniture, but outside, we're gonna put up some nice fencing and we're gonna make it look nice. So we're not gonna take it away from anything from what was a major concern, is like, are you guys gonna do this and just make it run it down kind of thing? And it's gonna be the opposite. We're gonna actually put a lot of money into it to make it even look nicer.
There was a couple of other concerns I had. Do y'all have a kitchen?
We do not have a kitchen so we are not, everything's gonna be either ordered in. So we talked to a couple of people in town here that have kitchens that can supply food for us. And also we're gonna do a lot of the fresh, it's gonna be kind of healthy food. So there's gonna be a lot of stuff that that are prepackaged that are healthy food that they'll eat but there's not gonna be a kitchen. So they can use, if they wanna heat up a pizza or something like that, they can do that, but we don't have a kitchen.
If you don't mind me asking, who we talked to?
Next door, our guys next door, and then, I mentioned it one time to the 511 Rose Lane, but I don't know if you remember. But I just kind of talked to a couple of people, say, hey, would you be interested in doing something like that? And the barbecue place next door, they said that would be great for us because we need the business anyway. And so there'll be a select menu that they go off, which is going to be mostly healthy food.
Right, well, I mean, a lot of our restaurants are closed on certain days of the week.
Yeah.
You get like the mud season, the slow
Yeah.
seasons, and restaurants just close down or they have limited menus, and some of the restaurants don't have, health options. They just don't,
Yeah.
they don't even have the capacity to cook that type of stuff.
Yeah, and we know that, like that barbecue, because they have a kitchen, but they have a what do you call it, flat grill where they can make eggs and things like that. But again, there's state regulations that we have to go by, where we have to have 2-3 months of food, dried foods and different things, that if there's a crazy snowstorm or anything that happens up here, our people are taken care of.
I just wanted to make sure that you've thought far enough ahead into this process and you've actually, thought about where you're gonna get your food for your clients and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there are other towns you can, Idaho Springs is a little bit busier, the restaurants stay open longer, you can probably order from them too, but
Yeah,
I don't think I have any more questions. Do you guys got any questions?
I'm glad you touched on the historic preservation, because obviously, that's huge for Georgetown. I just would like a little bit more information, what specialties, for extra community specialty services would you be able to provide, other than just the, expertise Are you gonna have experts that are going to be there besides the doctors, or?
Yeah, so we'll have psychiatrists, we'll have regular therapists, we'll have nurses. Some people will, when they come in, they'll be on, if they have an anti-anxiety or depressed, medicine for depression, there'll be nurses that will help administer those things there. But again, this is not like a detox where if you, or even a halfway house, you get drunk and stuff, you're gonna come. So we wanna, and that's why we kind of kept it just all women, the one thing, the liability, but just to make it sure that whoever comes, they're in a safe environment. And so, most of our staff is probably gonna be 90% female as well. Just because sometimes they relate to each other a little bit better, and I don't know, if I was going to rehab, and that's why this was a good opportunity for us as a group. It was, you know, if I was going to rehab, a lot of the places up here, there's 70, 80 people. In Denver, you're with 100, 150 people, some of these bigger places, sometimes you're in bunk beds or next to, I would prefer being with less people. But that's not everyone, you know? And so, and right next to, being next to the stream, like my wife and I, we stay up here a lot, just because we own a hotel. But just being next to the stream, it just brings, that nature just brings, it's a, whatever they're going through, it just brings them back to nature. And so, I know a lot of people that have gone to the other place, when I visit the Jaywalker in Carbondale, they said the same thing. The success rate is a little bit higher than the ones in the city, in Denver, just because of the surroundings and using the surrounding, everything that offers, so,
Good.
yeah.
Yeah, please.
You are aware, I'm sure you are, that there's a bar and soon to be
Yes.
another bar and a dispensary and two gas stations that sell beer
Yes.
right next to your.
I'm gonna tell you a funny story. So the one in Carbondale has been open 18 years. When I visited, it's right in the center. There's no fences, there's nothing. I don't know if Rick went up there, but anyway, it's right next to a bar brewery, right next to it. And you can just go there, you know. So in every town, there's gonna be a marijuana shop and alcohol everywhere. And so one thing we're gonna do is we're not gonna put a big fence. It's gonna be a nice little fence that when you, so it'll block the marijuana side. And in the summer, we have these big bushes, I don't even know.
Just so you know, the DRC has to approve that type of fence.
Yeah, I'm going through it. It's not gonna be huge or anything. It's gonna be like a normal 6-foot fence or something. It's not gonna be, and then on the other side, it's kind of the same thing, just to show kind of the border, but we wanna make it look really nice. And that was the big concern of everyone. So it's not gonna just be just wood. We already have pillars now, just wood and extend the pillars a little bit and just make it really nice, so.
What questions are answered so far? So, yeah.
If there's no other questions, you can close this part, and then you can open it to the public for questions.
I'll open it to the public. Does the public have any questions?
I do,
I'm not here.
yeah.
How are you? Good. So I've had concerns that were partially addressed, about security.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're gonna have on-site security.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's gonna be women who are through detox, but they're still gonna be at risk, right, for something. So is this gonna put any kind of burden too on the town with our one police person or maybe two? You know, what is the likelihood of that? What does that look like?
So I went down to we keep talking about the same place. So I went down to the Carbondale Police Station
Right,
and talked to, there was a lieutenant over there who's been there for 8 years. And in 8 years, they had one incident, and this is male tend to be a little bit more rowdy, right?
right.
And it's, one incident, and it was nothing happened, they just had to help transfer, to that facility, to the Aspen Hospital or something like that.
Yeah,
And so there's been no crime in, that he could even remember in the 8 years he's been there, and he looked through the files and stuff, and there were like 2, 3 incidents that were minor.
okay,
So I expect, so I have a friend that runs a place called Four Winds up in Glenwood Springs. It's all female place as well. They've been open for 4 or 5 years. There's been no, they have a 3-month waiting list. That's how bad it's needed up here.
oh, I'm
And
sure.
so, and they, so 3-month waiting list, and they've had no issues. They have little goats running around, different things for therapy and stuff.
Sure,
And they offered different types of therapy as well. And they've had no issues. And that's an all women's facility, so,
And then what about the, impact on the town? I heard you say earlier that there was gonna be a benefit to the town. And so how is the town benefited?
Well,
Can Rick answer that question?
Yeah, I can
Yeah,
answer
please,
that.
yeah.
So, one thing that in discussions of this, because it's in a commercial area,
Right.
one of the fears that the town had in the beginning of this was, once you lose commercial, you can't get it back.
Right,
So, because this is a commercial facility, they are gonna stay commercial and we'll still receive the sales tax from this.
okay,
And then second is because it is a 28 days or less, we will still be able to do lodging tax within 2.
okay,
So it'll be a same benefit that we had as the hotel. So
right.
those 2 parts are part of this.
But these women or, the residents who are there for 2 or 3 weeks, whatever it is,
yeah,
they're not gonna be coming into town and going to dinner or doing.
No.
They can't do that, because they're gonna be on site.
yeah, so
Right.
one of the things that, we thought about as a group is taking advantage of that lake. So it's
Right.
1.4 miles,
Right,
and it's pretty flat, right? So when you walk around even the summer, you get that shade on the other side, which a
Right.
lot of times when you look at it, you don't think that.
right.
But I walk it all the time, and that is just, and they will, if it's a group, we'll break in like, 2 groups of 5 or
So
whatever
it'll
it
be a
is.
supervised.
Supervised, but it'd be they're just taking a walk, and you wouldn't even know that they are even, most people in town wouldn't even know. It's like, hey, just a couple friends walking,
Yeah.
And so, yeah, they'll fit in. We don't want to stand out in any way
Right.
and bring anything to the town that's gonna affect it in any way, badly. So, yeah, so.
No, I can appreciate that, and I had another question about food, but that was asked and answered, I think that was kind of a matter, because I knew the hotel didn't have a restaurant, so I was just concerned about how does that happen and what does that look like?
Yeah.
But yeah, that was
Yeah.
responded to, so,
Yeah,
yeah, thank you.
yeah, absolutely.
Anybody else?
I was gonna bring up a point you did about the location being next to a dispensary and a liquor store
I
and.
think
Yeah.
everybody's comments.
It just seemed like a really odd place to put a recovery center for addicts.
For sure. And if I did see that place next to the place in Carbondale, I would have kind of, because I already thought that way, but then I was like, in every city, if you go to Idaho Springs in any city, if you put that in, you can go to any of those places. So the main point is, hey, this is, when you go back to the real world, it's gonna be in your face. Can you handle it? This is in your face, right? And people will know that, we'll disclose that before they come out here, because it is a concern. And so, I'm sure some people are like, what, this is too close for me. And some people, I like the program, I like the doctors, I like what you guys can provide and the activities that you guys can provide. So it's a little bit different. So if you can look at that in that way, you can sometimes surpass, those thoughts, so.
Do they have cell phones or communication outside?
So again, I'm not the doctor, I'm not the place, gonna be running the place or anything like that, but, most of the places they take your cell phone and there's no communication. Sometimes they'll have you, if there's something, but it's just basically, hey, man, you're here, we're gonna get you fixed, and try to get you fixed. But there's no communication, because you have cell phones, there's a lot of liability, you can call, they can call their drug dealer,
That's what
whoever
I
that is.
was, that's what I
Right,
was
so we
thinking
take all
is-
those things away from them,
You
yeah.
could be like, hey, can you buy something from dispensary and go over the system?
Yeah.
So I'll be in the back.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, so, and to that point though, too, and what Rick said earlier, it sounded like, okay, it's high end, I'm already through, but I need a refresher. Or is this, no, you know what, I just got detoxed and now I need my next step, or is it
So-
both?
So there's gonna be a lot of outpatient stuff where we're gonna say, even through, through the month that they're here as well, if there's AA, different places that, because a lot of the programs go to, you go to different places where you have AA meetings, right?
Right,
And then Al-Anon and, or just different, organizations with family and different things like that.
yeah,
And afterwards, what we do, even if they're from, let's say Minnesota, they came out of Minnesota, we'll find places out there, sources out there that they can have those meetings, continue that process. And sometimes they may need to go other places as well, that we can recommend.
sure, so for people coming in, it's gonna be both, hey, I just need to get, kind of reminded of everything, and also it might be people who are new to the sobriety.
For sure,
life.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, so it's just, it's mainly just therapy, you're sitting,
Yeah.
and then activity therapy.
Activities.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, for sure.
Yes, I think we all have the same concerns. I guess my question for the town is, and I hate doing like hypotheticals because you can go so many ways with it, but if worse comes to worse with the neighbors that they have, what recourses does the town have to address those issues? Should that arrive with the guests at the facilities and the neighbors being the bars, the liquor store and the dispensary?
I think it's probably the same recourse that we would have just over in town in general. So they would call police would respond, whether it be, even if we don't have the police force here, it still goes through 911 dispatch, then they would respond. So we have other agencies that are, joined with us because we have an IGA for the county. So whether it be the sheriff's office responds or Idaho Springs or Empire, somebody would respond to that call.
And then would there be corrective actions against the businesses or?
Probably.
It depends on what happens.
It depends on what the action
Yeah.
is. I mean, if it's a domestic dispute, it's not gonna be.
I would say, if like any business in town, if you do something wrong or things, you know, whatever, I'm sure they can close you down. Anybody, you know, I'm sure they have people that can close down pretty quick.
Well, and another thing, that's a good point, Bruce, because we've had some issues with, hotels in the past, with long-term stay being at a hotel, which is not authorized. And the police department brought an ordinance to our board in order to close that loop, because some of these hotels were not designed for long-term stay. A long-term stay should have a kitchen, it should be firewalled and everything. So the board actually listened to the police department's request for that, and we just passed an ordinance so that now that can be regulated. So it really depends on what the scenario comes and then how we can come back with a town response. Is there a policy that's required? So it depends.
And I've been in a couple of those meetings that Rick's talking about as well, but, yeah, they interact, it's something's going on. I think we were talking about, they were talking about people using drugs and also maybe some prostitution, whatever, remember?
Yeah.
A few years back, so they came in and just said, we're gonna do this, we shut you down, kind of thing, if this continues, or they'll put ordinance and,
No throwing stuff over the fence.
Yeah. Good question.
Does the public have any other questions?
I guess the only thing I would bring up is, being in Georgetown, we are pretty far away from any type of really medical services. So, I mean, we're about 40 minutes from Frisco, which is your closest big medical facility. So if somebody were to need immediate medical attention, would that be something?
same thing, if you're at the ski resort and something happened, if you break your leg, if it's emergency, we helicopter you down, or it's gonna be ambulance to the one in Bristol, or it is in Bristol, right? And then also the one in Denver, so there's two facilities. The one in Frisco is the closest one, and then the one in Denver, I think St. Anthony. There's those two places, two big hospitals. Other ones are kind of like walking places, they're not really hospitals.
Right.
Yeah,
So I just.
so it'd be kind of the same thing.
Yeah, I just want to kind of bring that up.
Yeah.
Bring it to your attention that we are kind of desolate with those people need immediate attention.
It would be the same.
Difficult to get that to them.
Yeah, it would be the same thing. If it was something like a crazy medical emergency, it would be something if somebody, you know, needed to helivac or whatever that's called. But mainly we do the two ambulance from both hospitals, to both hospitals, I'm sorry.
Right.
Yeah, but yeah, good question.
Anybody else? Okay, I'm gonna close public, and move to
6:32.
6:32. You guys have anything to say on top of anything?
I'm just opening it for, discussion between the commission, you know, town, took their, you know, stand in approving. I think it's important to keep an open mind, from a commercial use, keeping that functionality as a commercial use, and being able to keep it in that functionality, I think is an important part of what I think the selectmen have set up for us here. And I look at that as a pretty graceful, use of the land and get some continued use out of it. We have a lot of hotels, we're used to that. This is something we're not used to. It might make people feel uncomfortable, but sometimes giving things chances, it might be more beneficial than what we ever proposed or thought. So keep an open mind is my only thought. Only other thing that I think is a definite positive is it might bring more, just people in the town with more attraction to people that are struggling. Sometimes that can be a challenge, but sometimes that gives people opportunities, and Georgetown can be a place that people can restart their lives, and that can be powerful. So, I see a lot of positives. There's a lot of different concerns, but I think from a planning commission standpoint, I think it's pretty cut and dry that it goes right along with the ordinance that was passed. So I don't know what you guys think other than that.
I agree.
Well, if there's nothing else to say, I'd like to approve the request for the special use permit without conditions. Do I have a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the special use permit by Serenity of Life, for life. For their medical inpatient facility.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you guys so much. If you guys have any questions or anything, feel free to stop by and ask me.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Georgia, are you leaving?
I have to go, guys. I completed this like 2 days ago,
Okay.
and I already have a prior commitment.
No, you're fine.
So, I came to really meet everybody, see how it worked, and then I'm sorry that I have to take off. So,
She submitted an application.
I saw it.
yeah, we tracked a little bit, yeah. So I apologize, but I have something else that I gotta do. Right. Thank you, guys.
The next topic is the Clear Creek Inn.
All right, so Tom's here. So, I'll give just a brief, I know you hopefully read the report. This one is here before us mainly because of a code. And the code that I'm referring to is 1716-42 1716-40. 1716-4240, there it is. Here comes the name. And what this code says is, if it's not in the code, it's not allowed. It also goes on to say that if there's an interpretation question, it needs to go, it's up to the Board of Selectmen in deciding this. However, before the Board of Selectmen will make a decision on the interpretation of a use, it has to be reviewed by the boards. It has been reviewed by the DRC, and now the next place for this to go is the Planning Commission. The part that's in question right now is the interpretation of an event center. The Clear Creek Inn formerly has been a bed and breakfast. It has been doing, having guests stay overnight. It has a residential glass blown place where you can buy glass blown, different kind of trinkets. And then in the garage, there's also been approved under a special use before to do teaching how to make glass blown products. And so that was their business model, was those three things. However, they have been doing, events on the weekends. And so they've been doing weddings and ceremonies and things like that. And they've been doing this under a temporary use permit. And the previous administrator, Kent Brown, approved that. And that's an appropriate approval. It's a temporary event. Our code does not communicate anything about long-term or outside events. There's nothing that our code refers to except for temporary use permits to do an outside event. So Winella Pass Brewery does events, Cabin Creek does events, the Hamel House does events. These events can be done by nonprofits or by businesses. It's a temporary use permit to allow an outdoor event. So this is what makes it complicated. There's nothing in a zone that speaks about this, especially when it comes to events. So There's a neighbor, in your packet, you saw that there's a neighbor that has, opposed this request. I've met with the neighbor, I've met with the owners, 18 different times. So this has not been something to be taken lightly. We've discussed this. I continue to allow temporary use permits, but the objection was, this is no longer temporary. This is now a regular use, and it's not been approved in our code for a use by right. So our code only mentions two things. You have a use by right, and it lists categories. And then there's a special use, which is what we just saw. Because it's in the special use category, they have to have an application to be approved for that use. A use by right is not required. It is their right to do what's there. So because of this, it's become apparent what code gives them the right to do an event. And so it really kind of boils down to two codes in the historic mixed use code, which is 17-1642. That's the historic mixed use. The first thing that it says under intent, it begins to describe what this environment is for, and it's in your packet. It describes the intent of what that zone is. But then the first one underneath a use by right says they get grandfathered in. There's a specific thing that they get anything that's allowable in the historic commercial is allowed. They get it automatically grandfathered in. So whatever, they're in the mixed use, but they also get the same categories as a use by right for the commercial, the historic commercial. There's two categories in the historic commercial. That's a question right now. The first one, so 17-1642 is the historic commercial. 17-1643 is the mixed use. That's the zone that they're currently in. But if you go back to the use by right for the 42, there's two subsections in the use by right. The first one would be B5 that says indoor eating and drinking establishment, or B8, and B8 says indoor amusement and entertainment facility. So that's where the applicant has asked the staff when we do a change of use, because they're converting, oh, I forgot to mention that, they're converting the use from a residential bed and breakfast to a boutique hotel. As a hotel, there's an expanded use by right of what they're allowed to do. So it's a commercial facility now. In order to do a change of use permit, they have to upgrade the facility in order to make sure that it's commercial quality as opposed to residential. There's a use by right that comes in as a commercial. If you think about hotels, it's no longer just a single facility. It's a mixed use facility from the very beginning, because you can have a restaurant, you can have a bar, you can have retail shop and hotel. So there's a lot more that's involved. However, in order to do the events, the events center, it comes down to those two codes of what we're defining as. Because our code does not give definitions, that's where it's in question. How do you define a gathering for events? Is that staff, as we sit down and have to do research, how do you define what an indoor eating and drinking establishment is? It feels like it's common sense, correct? When you think of a bar, a restaurant, fits that category easily. And it also says in the code that they can extend outside on the patio as long as they don't exceed the indoor limits. So we see that at Guanella Pass, we see that at Cabin Creek. So we have examples already that occur in our town. Do those facilities do events? And the answer is yes. A bar or restaurant can hold their own private events. That's a use by right. So it seems like that really does fit in there. However, what would be really helpful is if we had a definition that said also includes events, gathering, indoor or outdoor. See what I'm saying? But because we don't have that, it's now left up to interpretation. And then the second category of use of what we're talking about would be B8, which says indoor amusement and entertainment. Okay, so again, indoor entertainment and amusement sure sounds like an event could fit in that one, right? So you're like, it seems like that could fit in there. However, when staff did our research, we contacted our planners to be able to research this, and our planner's here, and so if I miss something, please chime in, Mike. Historically, you know, when you look at that, it's more of a billiard hall. It's more of, a video game room kind of thing is the historic understanding of what that category. However, what would be really clear if we had a definition, right? The definition would solve all that. But since we don't have a definition, as much as staff can see those two categories as easily fitting into this, it still begs the question, it's up to the board, because 171640 says, if it's an interpretation, it goes to before the board. And that's why we're here tonight, because the board's asking this board, 171640 says that there's an interpretation, it needs to go before the board of selectmen. Before the board of selectmen will see it, they want to hear from the boards. And so at this point, we have taken it to the DRC. The DRC has communicated, basically their focus is historic preservation. So the questions that were proposed to them was, what has this area, the historic mixed use, been in the past? Has there been events outside? Has there been gatherings of events? Has there been hotels? And the answer is yes, yes, yes. Historically, in fact, it used to be very, very rowdy in that area. So there's always been a historic category for that in the past. So that was their recommendation, is in order to, they wanted to clarify that is true. It's been a use in the past. It's been, precedent has been set in a sense. Second is they have communicated that, instead of a use by right category for outdoor events, indoor events, clearly, it could probably fall under the B5, which is indoor eating and drinking establishment. That consistently, from our region to nationwide planning, when you look at that, there's always a right for an establishment to do an event. So the question in mind is not so much the indoor allowance of an event, it's more the question in outdoor allowance.
So it falls under B8, but with,
No, still B5.
okay, but with a amendment, you're saying?
So potentially, so the board could consider adding a definition to make sure it's clear that indoor/outdoor events are appropriate. Or, so that's the first question that I'll have you guys vet. The second question is, if the board feels that there should be a little bit more control on that situation and move it into a special use category as opposed to a use by right, put it in a special use category, that outdoor events can only be from commercial facilities/hotels that have space. Because St. James Inn is about to become a boutique hotel as well, downtown, but they do not have the space outside. So they would not be eligible. So I think it should be very refined that they have to meet, almost the same way that the previous applicant was here. They need a fine definition that says they are a hotel with outdoor space, then they would be eligible for an outdoor event, but it would still have to be approved by the board. And there could be conditions placed upon it. So for example, a condition that I have discussed with the applicant and with the architect as well is, it's a clear code path. When you look at that occupancy, like how big can your facility hold an event? If it's indoor, we have calculated with the building official that's safe built and with architect showing what occupancy load according to space is, and with the fire marshal, 49 would be an appropriate event occupancy load for an indoor event. Clearly that we're all in agreement for that. If you look at the category of 171642 B5, it says that the indoor space can also go outside to the outdoor space as long as it doesn't exceed the indoor number. So if you take those two numbers, 49 plus 49 is 98. So clearly if it's an outdoor only event, I can see a condition being placed upon it of cannot exceed 98. So and that would, again, it would be determined every single time that the applicant were to come. You know, like, so if it's not this hotel, it'd be another hotel, and if they want to get that right, we would have to look at their space to determine that and how they calculate it. But it would be specifically according to the application. But in this one, I think clearly, to me, it falls under the 171642B5 for an indoor. If they want to extend it to the outside, then they have the right to do 4949 for that mixed space. And if we wanted to extend it for them to do a whole event, it would have to be a special use permit, and then we can add whatever conditions. And at this point, that's to be determined. So anyways, that's what staff recommends, is either, your first option is put a definition in the use by right section of 171642B5 when it mentions indoor eating and stuff, and put a definition that would include also outdoor events, and then you can, it becomes a use by right, or it becomes the special use permit. So that's what that's our determination after looking at it for a million hours.
This isn't the same as the public hearing, right? So we don't have to follow the
We're
same
asking
format.
questions now.
Okay,
Yes.
is there anything that Mike needs to add to that?
Yeah, for sure. Mike, if you have anything to add.
I think I think what Rick's presentation and the town staff report, I think they've covered it very thoroughly. So I don't have anything to add unless you've got questions for me.
Just making sure that I'm clear on my understanding, this occupancy is mixed use in between commercial property and residential property. Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
And
Well,
that's shown on the, page 1 of my staff report, shows the zone district.
Yep, that's exactly what I was referring to, so thank you.
I would like just for you guys to discuss it and talk about it, like between all the stuff that you read, what are things that you have questions about? What are things that you have concerns about? Do you like this part? Do you not like this part?
So if they have a use by right, it means that they can do this on their own accord. They don't have to apply
That's
for
correct.
special
They would
use.
not have to, and no longer apply for a temporary use permit.
Excuse me, temporary use permit every time they want to do it.
And you see the tension, it's like, when I said we had 17 meetings, there were 17 meetings of every single time, creating a temporary use permit, creating conditions in order to try to find a balance between a neighbor, a residential neighbor, and them, so that we can work out something that would be appropriate. And that's the whole thing, is
Well, that's a complete
conditions.
waste of your time.
No,
Well, to do it every single time.
yes,
It-
it was, however,
To get
whenever-
repetitive, I would assume.
whenever there becomes a conflict, we take it seriously, and
Yeah.
we try to meet to make sure we're listening to both sides, accommodating both sides in order to find a solution to move forward. And so personally, I like the special use because it allows us to put conditions in order that the residential component that had issues would have a say to speak into it, and that we can come up with a compromise for both elements. And that's where the conditions will be placed into it.
For a special use permit.
Correct.
Yeah, so for instance, with that 171642B8, we would set some sort of standard, as you recommended, the 98 people.
Well-
Anything beyond that would have to have special use.
Yeah, and not B8, B5.
Okay.
B8 is only for indoor. It says indoor, amusement and entertainment.
So like, what is Guanella Pass Brewery? What are
They're
they?
B5.
So, and they have outdoors.
They don't do exclusive outdoor unless they do a temporary use permit, because they don't have a right to do that. They could do an event, but it's an indoor event that goes outside too.
So we would create a definition to make it an outdoor right by use.
Correct.
And then y'all would add that to this.
Correct. You can either create a definition that makes it a use by right, or you create, the next category that says it's a special use. That's a special use category. I prefer, as staff, a special use category. Because at that point, Now it has to be reviewed and approved by this board to see if they meet the requirements. They have the outdoor space. Because if it's a use by right, then we don't know if they have the space or not.
I just want, if you can clarify, I mean, for those that may not know, difference between this, temporary use and special use, and how long, I guess my question is, how long is a special use permit good for?
Indefinitely. If they sell the property, it transfers with the property. So a special use permit it's perpetual. Temporary use permit is only good for that day, that event.
In the special use permit, does the staff of the town, implement its own rules into that permit, like timeframes?
Correct. Yeah, that's conditions.
Okay.
So what would happen is if you guys want to move forward to recommending to the Board of Selectmen that this would be the best angle, then staff then would create a category in the code under, a new category code under special use permits, and then they would apply for that, and then staff would do a report recommending conditions to you guys when you see it.
But use by right would give him his own timelines and conditions.
Correct.
Okay.
I also wanted to note that the DRC recommended a special use permit.
Okay.
Yeah, and I kind of can see that alignment, just with the commercial zone and the residential zone, being smack dab in between it.
Right.
We have to be cognizant of both of those situations.
And would that come back to us?
Yes,
Mhm.
it sure will.
Okay.
It'll go before the DRC first as a recommendation, and then this board is final when it comes to special use permits. And if the applicant chooses to appeal it, then it would go back to the board of selectmen.
Okay.
Which is what happened on that one case. That you guys saw before.
Anything else, guys? Before I go to the applicant presentation. Sure. Okay, it's, 6:55. Okay, I'm gonna go to the applicant presentation.
Well, it's not an open, I mean, this is just a discussion. So you can ask him to communicate, however, it's not a public hearing.
No.
So there's no, we're not recording now.
Okay, so I still moved him, correct?
Yeah, I mean, you can ask him questions.
Yes, it does.
Go ahead, Jim.
Sorry. Yeah, this came from staff moving it to here because we had a challenge of an interpretation question. And
So
that's why
we're
it's
just voting on it.
Yeah, so I recommend making a motion to, making these situations a special use category to, increase the definition to clarify 171642B5. So 4 special use permits rather than the temporary use permit.
Okay, so time up for a second. So B5 right now is a use by rights. And so, I don't know what it's called, is it C? Did you have the code up for the section that we're saying?
For special use?
For special use.
17.26.030.
It would
No,
be a
that's
special
different.
use added to 171643B.
No, it would be C then. Is it C, the
Or
special
it
use?
would be, B is special use, and then there's categories underneath it.
Okay, I wanna, this is important that we get it right. Let me grab the code book.
Can I get a comment? Again, Tom Peterson. I'm an architect for Lloyd. I've done, basically the code analysis for the building component of this. So again, he's applied for a building permit so that he can upgrade his facility to a commercial building to handle assembly occupancies, is basically what it boils down to from a building code standpoint. Your task is the zoning side of it, which is a different thing that Lloyd's also applying for, which is to change of zoning use, I think, right? And somehow, that's where all this stuff came in, but, I guess my only comment is just as a more the public citizen so much as the architect. I'm not as familiar nearly with the zoning codes as all you guys are, Rick especially, and with this in particular, but I guess to be noted that, you know, decisions and whatever, gets decided on and gets worked through the process is more than just Lloyd's. It's more than just Clear Creek Inn. It's gonna apply to all commercial, is that correct?
That's correct.
So that, you know, and I think it's also boils down to what to do with the outdoor use of spaces and how that applies. And special use does, in my mind, seem to make sense from the little bit I know about the zoning and regs and how they work, in that every property is unique, like was mentioned, and that. Thanks. And so that, I guess, whatever is decided upon should be, you know, cognizant of that and how outdoor spaces can be utilized for, you know, what space is available to the public to use, and as far as the number of people, could be a tricky one too. And so I'm not sure, I think the doubling, like you were saying, the doubling of outdoor occupancies kind of comes from a restaurant component that's in the zoning code. Is that I would assume would be part of, if a special use permit did apply, that number would be reviewed based on, again, there's another applicant that has 0 outdoor space, so they might not be allowed to have outdoor activities. The doubling of the space, part of the part that I did for the building portion of it, the question that came up is the plumbing facilities, how many, and code dictates how many toilets and washing stations you have to have based on your number of occupants. So the number to that, I should have that, but it's, you know, it's, I think, I want to say, I should speak accurately on that, but it's 150 to 200 range that he has the plumbing facilities for, just as an FYI. I don't know how that needs to be regulated either. I think special use doesn't make sense, but just keep in mind that applies to every commercial business that you guys.
So I think that's an excellent point, and I'm glad you brought it up. And then I'll clarify the code just a second. Every business right now, such as a bar or a restaurant, can do an event outside if they have a space. And we know Cabot Creek does have a space, Guanella Pass Brewery does have a space, but they have to get a temporary use permit. The reason why this is, we're talking about regular use. And then none of these places are allowed to do regular use. They would have to continue to get a temporary use permit. There is a head scratching that I go, how many times can we do this until it becomes regular use? And that's why our code doesn't speak about it, and that's why we're here today. Tom is an expert architect in codes.
I am now.
He is, he understands the building code, but this is zoning code, and we're trying to make these work. And the zoning code sometimes is quiet, and when it's quiet like this, sometimes it's intentionally quiet in order to give the town administrator discretion when it comes to temporary use permits. And so that's why we're trying to close the loophole to make it clear for all people. You know, when you create a new rule, you want it to be equitable for all people, for all businesses. And so if you're gonna do this, this is why I want to make sure we got the code right, because it's 171643, section C. And section C is the temporary use, and that's where we would create a new category. So it will be number 10 when we bring it back to you. Okay. It'll be number 10, and it'll say outdoor, regular outdoor events or something like that. So if your facility wants to do regular outdoor events, that's not a right, a use by right. It would have to be under a special use permit. And then we can create conditions. And the conditions would be based individually based on that facility size and so forth. So there would be safeguards put in there. And yes, Tom could come back to me and say, the code according to PUC could say, we can have 500 people. Well, that doesn't mean we're gonna do 500 people. That means we're gonna be responsible as the town board to say, between the residential area and commercial area, we're gonna come up with something that's fair. And it doesn't matter if we agree, we decide that. And so I just think that's the weighing of something to say, we want to be fair to allow this, and it doesn't matter.
Does that allow any applicant to, I guess what, the type of use, again, the conditions of the use that would be put on any specific place, I guess that would be kind of based on the applicant. Here's what I intend to do permanently as an outdoor activity.
Correct.
Yes, no, or
Yes.
what can we do?
So example, the Camel House comes to us. They have a huge facility, outdoor space. We may do calculations and it'll be a public hearing and we'll invite the residents to come. So they potentially may be able to do 300 people at their event because of the space and everything else. However, there's other conditions that may be different because it's closer proximity to residents. You know, so all that stuff, there's not gonna be a normal situation. There's not a chart that we can fill out. It'll have to be individually based and vetted through our staff and the board.
And I think that's why the special use is more pertinent here, because each of those special uses are prior to being put into service.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I think you brought up the good pointer, that was kind of, I kept missing or wasn't clear on, that this is more about a regular outdoor use as opposed to, like, again, all the other businesses that do once a year activities outdoors, they will probably still continue to do temporary use permits.
Correct. Yeah, there's always another path.
Right.
But this is today's regular use.
Right, to clarify the code to help with these confusions.
Right.
And I guess from that other standpoint, yeah, I think it's just, you know, I would wholeheartedly support, you know, any business that wants to do outdoor activities. You know, again, with the restrictions, is, you know, taking into consideration noise, I'm sure there are already things in the, you know, codes, you know, the temporary use permits to, you know, whether it's a time frame versus, you know, how much noise, what can be done outdoors. But yeah, I think any activity, I think you need to keep businesses, equitable for both the town, for themselves to make money, for them to make money for the town. I know Lloyd does a lot of that stuff. I think it's successful business there. And it's into to represent that he does the glass blower. So, you know, I think it's great that he can provide all those things that we, yeah, I think it's a good business to make sure you can still do successfully.
I'm also more than happy to answer any economic impact questions if there are any.
I think I'll just move forward with, the recommendation to approve the, special use permit in the 17.16.43, section C. All right. Do I have a motion?
Nice of move. Yeah, nice of move to make that motion.
And to clarify that like, it will be unique to, it won't be the same as like what is written here for 17.16.42B. It'll be like a different than that,
Or
or
under 43, since it's mixed use.
yeah, but will it fall under like a similar description of an indoor eating and drinking establishment?
No, because that's a use by right.
Got it.
Yeah.
So it'll be a completely new thing.
Completely new. Yeah. And I mean, one suggestion could be, because you brought it up, it's like, should this only be applied to mixed use area, or should it be applied to, the historic commercial? And, or should it be to all of the other areas, like gateway commercial too? If you're gonna do an outdoor event regularly, that should also apply there.
Right.
And you can communicate that, or the board of selectmen can review that when they think about adding this. Because, well, evidently, I mean, eventually what's gonna happen is they're gonna task the staff to come back, and the staff will go, wait a second, this should also be applied to these other zones too, right? Then you may be seeing that next is amending code, because we found loopholes that we're trying to close there too.
Who would have to write the language for all that stuff and deciding on, is that?
Mike Davenport.
Okay. And then I guess reviewed by the board of selectmen and.
Yeah, it'll get reviewed,
by.
it'll be reviewed by me and our town attorney to make sure legally we're not saying something that's, you know, illegal. But so it'll be reviewed by us, and then it goes back for the board, and then they may change it again. So, at least we kind of start that process.
Gotcha. Can I move forward a motion? Do I have a motion for a special use permit for 17.16.43, section C?
Wait, you're making a recommendation, right?
Yeah, you've already,
He already.
I've already moved.
he's already moved.
Yeah, but it was,
I second that.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. All right.
Rick, are you done with me for the evening?
I certainly am. Thank you, Mike.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. Bye.
Thanks, Mike.
Bye-bye.
Next.
Thanks for going to this every.
Hope I didn't miss anything, Sam.
No.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Time is 7:10. Next we have the vacant seat.
Mayors.
First we have, Chris Sanford. Has everybody had a chance to read the letter of intent from Chris Sanford?
Yes.
So, just having to come up.
Do you wanna say anything?
I was just gonna say that, I mainly applied for the open position because, I lived in Georgetown my entire life and don't really plan on going anywhere anytime soon, so I have kids that I'm raising here as well and would like to just be involved with what's going on in the future and just, like to kind of see things that, preserve the historic aspect of the town and things that I grew up respecting. Just want to be a little more involved and just make sure that things aren't escalating and, we're not going a different path than what we've kind of been about in the past, so.
Anybody have questions? I've got a question.
What's that?
I mean, and I think I'll ask this question to everyone, so it won't be just particularly you, but, I'd like to hear, what's your experience, being on a board? What is your experience with code? What is your experience with, dealing with planning in general? Have you ever been to a planning board? And, I just like to hear those things.
As of now, no, I haven't been a part of any planning commission or planning board or any type of board for any town or government. The only experience I really have is I do have a really strong background in construction, so as far as the construction aspect of those types of things, I do have a good idea of the planning layout of how those things are supposed to go from ground up, and then, as far as, building codes, I am very savvy with those kind of things, and in particular, electrical codes. My brother and I run our own electrical business out of Georgetown here, so, do have, a lot of experience in the construction part of it, not so much planning commission or being on the board.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else have questions?
How did you become informed of the vacancy?
Actually, we do quite a bit of work with our buddy Jake Cooper here, and he was able to kind of let me know that there was a free opening, so kind of snuck in and gave my letter of intent very quietly, so.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks for applying.
Yeah, definitely, thank you.
Christian Dixon?
Possibly, someone that's a lifelong resident probably deserves the open position more than I do. 2.5 years, but I'm sure I'm here and the same reason you stay here is, my wife and I moved from Texas and, I fell in love with Georgetown immediately and the charm of historic buildings and all the people we've met. And, that's an interest in seeing it stay the way we, grew to love it. So, and we intend to stay here, till physically have to move to Denver or whatever. I haven't been on a board, but, I work in operations for Apple, and a lot of the stuff you're talking about sounds like kind of like what I do, but in a different way. My team writes code or creates code to affect operational changes at the company, so we're also having to have like a, thought of how is this gonna impact other areas of the business. So when you're talking about writing new code, it's like, how do you use existing code or write new code to affect change, and what impact will that have? And you gotta look around corners and think of, very far into the future, how this might impact, what you're doing. So, in that respect, I think, this kind of role is interesting. It reminds me of my day-to-day job, so.
Quick question first that comes to my mind is, I've seen you before many times, because I sit on lots of boards in the town. And can you share some experience that you have at coming before the boards?
Yeah,
as an applicant?
Yeah, I came for the DRC, twice, once to have some work done on landscaping, and then another to have windows installed. And so, I thought ahead of time, like some of the questions you might get and some of the answers I should give, to rebut, pushback or to make the council easy about what we're suggesting. And then we had no intention of, changing things, because we were in the historic section. So I knew that would be, a factor in those decisions. So, yeah, just try to think about like, what kind of questions am I gonna get in this scenario? So to be on the other side, I think it's similar. You think about like, what kind of questions am I gonna ask, what kind of answers am I gonna get, and be like, can we gain agreement?
Anybody else have questions?
No, this is, thanks.
Okay.
Bruce Shank, right, Shank?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Bruce Shank. Grew up next door and over the way in Central City. Graduated Gilpin County in '94. Joined the military in '95 and kind of set off globetrotting for the last 25 years. Moved back home to take care of my aging parents, growing family. And it was just time to come back home. I've been, since I moved back to Georgia, well, since I moved into Georgetown, been going around to a couple different meetings, getting involved with stuff. It's always something that's been interested me. When I lived in San Diego, as I wrote my packet, I was on a planning committee for North Park neighborhood there. I've always enjoyed the charm of Victorian towns. I don't want to see what's happened to Central City and Black Hawk, how they've succumbed to like the mega casinos. I think it's important to, as I wrote, we want to preserve our history, but we have to remember where we've been and smart growth planning for where we're going, because we have to provide for, as we get bigger, as things go on. And it's a balance I want to contribute to and help with my expertise over the years that I've been involved with.
And I've seen you quite a few times. This is definitely not your first rodeo coming to a meeting. I would say I've seen you for months and months and months coming to as many meetings as possible. And I remember asking you, like, are you a reporter?
Yeah. But I made a comment about being a slow news night, and it was not about being a reporter, because I had nothing better to do, so I came in and sat on a meeting.
But it's always funny because the board's always like, who is this guy? Is he a reporter? And it's like, no, he's not. He is a very involved citizen. And so I commend you for going to the boards, to seeing how things are run. And so very experienced when it comes to knowing what's going on, because he's seen what's been going on. And he asks questions frequently, so I can say that about Bruce. And even when he had an issue about one of his own neighbors, he researched code, even though not all of what he said was right.
We'll talk about that.
No, but he did his work, like how do you gotta stick to code about some things, and he had a great case. And so, but anyways, his neighbor actually accommodated and was able to address that situation so that you shouldn't have that same problem ever again. So anyways, good.
Did you create this?
That was a link from Jen.
That's on our website.
So I just downloaded the application and just filled out what was there from the link.
I didn't know that would be.
So I guess what's that push to come and volunteer? What's that extra little nudge to?
I mean, I've just always been involved with community wherever I've been. I've been involved in a number of nonprofit boards. The different places I've lived, I've always tried to be involved with the community and be part of those things. And it's just part of my natural drive.
Nice. Appreciate it.
Jen, is Karen Woodford on Zoom?
No,
So she's not here?
correct.
And we already met Georgia Kofed. Did you get a chance to talk to her? You know who she is? She was the lady.
Yeah, I know, yeah, right.
Yeah, and I know
That's all I
Georgia,
know.
I know Georgia as well, and I know she's a high expert when it comes to code. She actually has been an applicant herself and was the code writer for the other company to try to help them understand zoning issues. And so she has a ton of experience when it comes to zoning and understanding zoning, so probably more experience than me.
We have, in my opinion, we have 4 applicants to choose from because one of them's not even here. Also, I think we discussed, choosing 1 to fill the vacant seat and 2, alternates. To have to fill a seat in case somebody doesn't show up or in case we have somebody to surprise, hey, I'm going to resign. And Jen mentioned that
The DRC, the Design Review Commission is gonna have, like 3 positions up in March. So that would be something else that you could apply for if this doesn't go through. Just as a backup.
3 positions?
Yeah,
Is there anything that prevents you from sitting on more than one commission?
yeah. You can only, like, if you're sitting on the planning commission, you couldn't be on the board.
Yeah,
You can't, yeah,
But you could be on another commission. Could you be on the DRC and the planning commission? That's a no.
no.
Okay.
no, yeah.
I'm not gonna get that involved, I was just curious.
Yeah. So if you wanted to be on the DRC, you should leave now.
And we've also had,
Yeah, withdraw.
we've also had, you mentioned it and then somebody else did about how the planning commission used to have 7 members and now we're at 5 and then maybe we could
Yeah, we could increase
change
that. We could, change the procedures to include that. Second is the DRC, when I spoke to them, they had mentioned they wanted to remind this board that, it's really good to make sure you have representation of all wards. So if you don't have a representation, that's an indication, try to fill somebody with that first. And if there's not a representation, then you do.
What board are you in?
I live up on Skyline.
So these 3,
I'm in 2.
what's your,
3, okay.
You're in 3.
Yeah.
I'm in 3.
2.
2, what are you? 2, okay. And I don't know where Georgia is.
Georgia's she's on 11th Street, so she, I think, is 2, yeah.
All right. Well, again, that's just a recommendation. It's not a
We don't have
requirement.
anybody applying for one anyways.
Correct, yeah.
Karen, I think is technically wrong, but she's not here, so.
Yeah, if she was here, I would love to hear from her,
But Karen was the lady we met with the other night, is that correct?
Yeah.
She was very interested in wanting to just get involved in, be involved with code and see how things really kind of transpire. A lot of, I think where we all originated, how does it work? Where does it go from there? So, yeah, I mean, what's great is people willing to volunteer. Unfortunately, I don't know what the rules are. I hate turning away volunteers. So, coming from the town.
well, we have 4 people that showed up tonight that are volunteering for the board. And we have 1 that didn't, so.
Yeah,
There's no limit, I don't think, on alternates.
Correct.
How does this work right now? Do we like vote on them?
Yeah, so you should select 1,
Okay.
and then you can request if the others want to be alternates. And then this goes before the board to select them for their approval.
So we have to fill 1 vacant seat and then we select the alternates.
Yeah, Karen had a prior engagement, which is why she's not here tonight. So you know.
Okay.
And there may be another position opening up too on this board, but for a full-time position.
And one of those alternates could possibly fill that position.
Correct. Yeah.
So, what are you thinking, Doug?
Yeah, it's hard to choose just one. Georgia was here, and I've met, and all 3 others are here and present. So,
I'm thinking right now, from an experience standpoint, being on a board to fill a vacant seat, I'm either between Georgia or Bruce. Seeing as how there's probably gonna be another seat opening up, one of these other people could easily fill it. And if we're moving to 7, or they all could fill it, you know?
Yeah, I'm good with that. So with Bruce being here present, I recommend we select Bruce to be approved as the vacant seat position for the planning commission, and then assign all the other applicants as alternates.
I agree. Second that. Okay, but is that, I agree.
Yep.
Yeah.
You made a motion,
Well, yeah, the motion, you seconded.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Sure, fill in the vacancy.
And then we got alternative.
I'd like to make a motion, or sorry, can I get a motion to, make Chris, Georgia, and Christian,
And Karen alternates? Yeah.
and Karen?
My previous motion was for Bruce to fill the vacant seat and the other applicants to be, approved as alternates.
Okay.
Yeah, second that.
It was already done.
Yeah, okay, yeah. No, they're already declared.
And the alternates can still vote and everything. You still have pretty much the same power.
Yeah, so if somebody doesn't show up, we call them in to come fill the seat, correct?
Well, they just come to the meetings anyway. It's kind of like business promotion as alternates. And you kind of expect it just to come to the meetings all the time anyway, you know? So you're up on what's going on. It's not like you could just show up once in a blue moon and know what's going on.
And a courtesy would be to let Jen know if you're not coming.
Yeah.
Because then that's how we can track to see if there's a quorum. And, you know, if you can just let us know when you're not coming, then that helps us, you know, make sure we have a quorum.
So then they will have boxes as well, or when they get voted, or they get approved by the board of selectmen?
Well, we'll have to figure that out. We don't have that many boxes, but we'll figure something out.
Yeah.
Most of the stuff done is through email.
As far as moving to 7, what would that entail?
Probably changing a policy.
So who does that? The staff?
Testament, right? Codeman.
Yeah, I think maybe it's a code. We have to look at the procedure and the code because it may, so it's probably a text amendment from the code. We'll work on that. We'll bring that up. Will you write that down? Just.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a question. For alternates, is there a ranking so that we know who fills a seat when someone's not here?
I don't think so.
No,
It's
I
just-
mean, my personal opinion, we think somebody's going to resign, so when we get that letter, then we can put it before you, the alternates, and ask who wants to be considered for,
And then we would, as a board.
then you guys would recommend it to them.
And along with the DRC spots, I mean, I would just like to accept as many volunteers as we possibly can, so we have more involvement with the community, is what my thought is here, so.
But like on DRC, when we have alternatives or alternates, they're not ranked, it's just, we do call them just to make sure when we find out we don't have a quorum, to make sure that they are coming. Some come regularly, some don't, and so.
So if we're missing a person and there's 3 people that are alternates here, you just decide at that moment who's gonna fill the role?
We just call one of them up. Yeah.
I guess, I don't know. We've never had that problem.
We've never had an alternate.
Or even like
The planning
this.
commission used to have alternates.
Yeah.
Last year, the year before, we had.
We are, you did say that one of them is resigning.
Yeah,
so-
there will be another one. It's been communicated to us that there's another person on the board that will be resigning soon. So keep that in mind. And I guess too, if one of you wants to potentially join the DRC, then you would just let us know so that we can, have that application to them.
We'll put an ad out when it's the time that they're expiring, so everybody has a chance to apply for it.
Yeah.
Whoever
Yeah.
wants to.
Yeah, good point.
being alternates, y'all would be one of the, y'all would get those emails, so.
Good.
Sweet. The member attendance.
Approval minutes, or,
I think the minutes are last.
okay.
So we just wanna talk about, maybe getting the staff to, make, what is it, a rule, or talk about policy adjustments for our committee, our commission. The Board of Selectmen had an issue with one of their selectmen, zooming in to all of their meetings. We had an issue with one of our members zooming in, not showing up. So to ratify that in the future, I'd just like to impose a rule on, or talk about maybe making a rule on how many Zoom meetings you can attend per calendar year and how many meetings you can miss per calendar year before, something's done about it. You know, I'd also like to ask Kasia to talk about, you know, the rules, for members of the board.
Yeah, so per 24020D, if any member ceases to reside in the town, his or her membership on the commission shall automatically terminate. Members shall also be subject to removal by a majority vote of the membership of the Board of Selectmen for inefficiency, neglect of duty, excessive absenteeism, malfeasance in office. For purposes of this section, excessive absenteeism shall mean a failure to attend more than 3 consecutive regular meetings or a failure to attend at least 60% of the regular scheduled commission meetings in any 6-month period, which would mean missing 2 meetings within 6 months. And then attendance in this case does not clarify whether that means in person or on Zoom. I also looked up if you're interested in primary residence, but there is no definition within the planning commission section. There's only a definition within the personal marijuana cultivation and use section. If you want me to read that, so.
What's that? I don't think that matters. So the primary residence, everybody here on the board lives here in town, correct? Okay. So I think just let's talk amongst each other about what we think. How many times should we be able to zoom in per calendar year?
I think it should be questioned. Do you guys consider this important?
Oh, okay.
You know, it's like this, I know you have a strong feeling about it, but I think it should be questioned. Is this something that the board feels like we should alter? Because policy right now is not strong enough to address an issue. Does the board perceive this as an issue right now? So I think that's the first question. Is if it's not an issue, then we don't address it.
I personally haven't found it to be an issue in the time that I've been here.
Yeah, I don't see that as being an issue. So I guess personally, we do own a property in Wiggins, Colorado, and I am currently residing up here. So I have every encouragement and every want to be a part of the planning commission. So it's, interesting to try to make every aspect to try to come to every planning commission, possible, with the situations that everybody has in different situations in their life. So I think the description of what the recommendations are for the planning commission are directly executed in our rules already. I take it personal because I'm on the board, so, I mean, I can only miss 2 meetings for every 6 months, and, I think technology, I actually got involved in planning commission because of technology and able to watch the Board of Selectmen meetings on Zoom, so, That's how I stepped into it. Now, to take it away from being able to be a part of decision-making and knowing what's going on in the town of Georgetown, I think would be a huge detriment to, I know a lot of residents live here, but a lot of our community does not live here, but they have the ability to get onto Zoom, and if they want to get involved, they can open up other doors of doing that as well, so.
I do find it to be more, it means more to be in person than to be online. Like, I think the intent should be to be here in person.
I think that's the reason why I brought it up. That's my whole deal is being in person in the meetings more often than not. Is the whole reason why I brought this up. And that was the discussion matter is having staff, clarify or, clarify the rules in the handbook to mention that. That was the reason.
Perhaps more often than not.
Yeah, I think that.
Seven, you can be on five.
Yeah, and I think too, one of the issues in the past is, if there is communication problems, that may hinder a quorum. But however, it looks like we just beefed up a quorum, so that this should be an issue. But however, I would say if this becomes an issue again, bring it back to the board and then see if that's something that you would task staff to change policy, to write it in such a way that the expectation would be in person and Zoom would only be like your, last resort, like I'm gonna be out of town, however, I still have access to these Zoom so that you participate. The Board of Selectmen is really a completely different situation, because one is a board member has never been in person.
I was just using that as an example.
Yeah, and I hear you, but I understand the purpose behind it,
And I don't wanna feel like I'm picking on anybody, this became an issue and it needed to be brought up. And we made a discussion and
I would just like to live within the rules that are already presented to us, and when we signed up as a planning commission member, those are the rules that we signed up for, so.
So we don't wanna task the staff to clarify those rules at this current time.
I don't feel the need to.
Okay. All right, well, moving forward, can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting? Sorry. Can I get an approval or motion?
Make a motion to approve the minutes from the meeting of November 15, 2023.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?
I motion to adjourn the December 20th meeting.
All in favor?
Thank you all for coming.
Yeah.
And expectations usually once